Content and organization of a manuscript. Here we will be talking about the components of a manuscript relevant to this class. As you read articles, you will see additional sections that we don't have time to cover in a semester. The learning outcomes include list and define the parts of a research paper, write a literature review with high quality, create a title page, abstract, intro, literature review, conclusion, and references section. When writing, you should make sure that the quality is appropriate for the groups who will read your work. Determine authorship credit as early as possible. This isn't an issue in this class, but is something you should consider for the future. How do you put author names on work for school projects? Alphabetically, by order of contribution. What qualifies as enough contribution to receive authorship credit? When writing, your target group is going to expect you to read and summarize the current body of knowledge and build upon that. Otherwise, they may doubt your foundational knowledge in the area, your bona fides. Although you likely won't use citations like you do in this class, building upon prior work in industry is equally important as it is for academic research. You should consider your audience and carefully follow standard guidelines, templates, formatting, etc. for business and academic reporting. Quality of the research is also an important consideration. Is the research important? Is it error-free? Here we again emphasize the importance of writing clarity and grammatical typo double-checking. Would you read the paper if someone else gave it to you and it was a topic you were interested in? If not, others are unlikely to read it too. Would it influence your work? We seek to better understand our environment, and to do that, we need to be aware of important studies around us. If your research isn't relevant, then you may need to reconsider the quality of your paper. Ultimately, you will put together a high-quality paper for this class with the following sections: title page, abstract, introduction, literature review, conclusion, and references. Method, results, analysis, and our implication sections, which you will find in many of the peer-reviewed journal articles you read, are beyond the scope of this class. First, you have to decide on a topic. More on that in another presentation. Then you need a title page. The title should clearly and succinctly summarize the main idea of the paper. If a catchy title is appropriate and you come up with one, feel free to use it. I rarely come up with a catchy title, although I'm working on a paper entitled Gender in IS, Who's on Top. It compares men and women IS authors and is one of my favorite titles. We're still working on it. The title should be fully explanatory when you read it, although my catchy title I just mentioned is not fully explanatory. Keep it simple in most cases. Finally, you should include the author names and affiliations. Here's one title from a paper I co-authored in about 2014. The title is The Russian and Ukrainian Information Technology Outsourcing Market, Potential Barriers and Management Considerations. We actually had to add a paragraph to the paper because Russia annexed Crimea while the paper was being reviewed. Can you imagine how we would have to revise the paper if we were submitting it now? Many academic paper titles are long, as this one is, but it gives you a clear idea of what the paper is about. Incidentally, we recommended against outsourcing IT projects to Ukraine. Even though the government is pro-Western business, the population is technically adept and there are plenty of IT workers. We made the same recommendation about Russia at the time. We warned against geopolitical problems. It wasn't as if we were prescient or anything. Everyone knew that Russia wanted Ukraine, and they were willing to go to war to get it. This title was kind of catchy and was a conference presentation we made. Breaking the Glass Firewall, Women in Information Security and Assurance. In this paper, we talked about the experience of the small numbers of women who were working in InfoSec. Once the title page is completed according to APA standards, check the APA guide, the abstract comes next. The abstract is short. For your very short mini research paper, it should be no more than 1/2 page. It should be a comprehensive summary of the paper at a high level with 2 to 3 sentences describing the issues in any areas where you recommend future research. The abstract is often the only part of the paper another researcher will read. That's what I do to find out if a paper is relevant to my studies after looking at the title. The abstract, appearing at the beginning of the paper, cannot be written until the research is completed. You don't know exactly what you're going to say until you say it. Overall, the abstract must be accurate, self-contained, concise and specific, non-evaluative, coherent, and readable. Next comes the introduction. It does not begin with a restatement of the abstract. The introduction is where you tell the reader what you will be discussing. While you give an overview of what has been done before, it's brief. You only use a few citations in the introduction, going into more detail in the literature review. You answer the question, why is the problem important? An excellent way to accomplish this is to use statistics, something like XX% of companies suffered breaches last year, or there are 200,000 job openings for IS graduates and only 20,000 graduates. I'm making up numbers. You want to get the reader's attention and convince them to keep reading. I will keep reading, regardless, of course, but you need to make your case. And you have to do it in an introduction of about 1 page. The literature review comes next. Here is where you show that you have done due diligence and understand the foundational concepts in the area you are studying. You describe the previous research in the area by building upon a foundation of respected researchers. Then your paper has validity and is strengthened. The literature review integrates and synthesizes across multiple studies. By that I mean you identify where researchers agree and where they disagree. Do some believe that IT professionals work better in teams? If so, why do so many IT projects come in over budget, over time, and with little functionalities? Some authors may believe it's problem 1, while other authors believe problem 2, and still others problem 3. This is the hardest part of graduate writing and is the main difference between undergraduate and graduate writing. In undergraduate, you regurgitate what others have said in paragraph after paragraph. In graduate, you think about it, bring together authors, and identify areas of commonalities and areas that may need to be studied further. If you then pursue a PhD, you might take one of those areas that need further study, gather data, and test hypotheses. Because you integrate and synthesize, your paper is not an annotated bibliography, with each paragraph having 1 citation and discussing 1 issue or 1 paper. This is the longest part of the paper assignment and will be 3 to 5 pages long. The conclusion section is short, maybe half a page. Here you evaluate and interpret what you reported in the literature review. Then you summarize the main points you made in the literature review and identify any areas that need further study. The references section is last. All of the references must be in proper APA format. If you use an inline text citation, it must be listed in the references. If you list an entry in the references, it must be used as an inline text citation. The references section is not a bibliography. I do not want a list of all the articles you read, but only the ones you used in the final paper. In summary, the major parts of your research paper in this class include abstract, introduction, literature review, conclusion, references. Your paper should be of high quality and at graduate student level. You should use APA format throughout for consistency.